ahead of time for the question. That's why I came in and I was like, oh, I'm just going to stand. Yes, that's why I'm standing.
Ladies are not showing. I just go on. Fans coming Thursday. Good.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Everybody, Bonnie will stand, we'll do the pledge and then the prayer.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Almighty God, our rock and our salvation, we beg you to pour out your Holy Spirit upon our fractured nation. Heal the divisions that separate us and remove all obstacles to authentic unity. May you guide this great country of ours and lead our citizens to embrace one another as neighbors and fellow countrymen, created in your own image and likeness. Give us a fresh opportunity for renewal and true solidarity for the common good of our homeland. May we return to our true identity as a people of faith and charity. Help us to always remain one nation under you, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. Amen.
Okay, I'd like to recognize our visitors. I know we have some visitors here. First time, Paul, would you please raise your hand? That's absolutely fantastic. At the end of the meeting, or if you have any questions, let me know. Our leadership group is right over here, and so you're welcome to ask us after the meeting, and we'll be glad to talk about what our Tea Party is all about. A couple of announcements. We went to a meeting with Dr. Manny Sethi. He is of Indian descent, but he's a Christian. He's a thoracic and orthopedic surgeon. Really, really good. He's from Nashville. He is going to be running for Alexander's position. Right now, the other one that's running that we know of is Haggerty, and that is the one that Hazel has put forward. So he's a rhino is the best way to describe it. So we're going to try and get Dr. Manny Sethi here as soon as we can. We really, the leadership went to a meeting with him and really enjoyed what he had to say and how he presents himself, and I think he'll be an excellent candidate for the Senate. Also, I went to another meeting of the military at Telco Village, and for those of you that have military service, we did have the military veterans fair officer here in the local area here last to talk about Also, there's another service rep, Tom Hopkins, in Knoxville, and I tell you what, he really knew his business having to do with helping the vets. So between the two of them, if you can't get your questions answered, I don't know who can. If you have any kind of military service, you ought to go talk to these people, go sit down and talk with them and see what they can do for you. If you had multi-service, at least you can get into the VA system, and that's something that's really good. Also, some of us went to a meeting in Kingston having to do with the silver carp. Silver carp is an Asian fish that is invading the Tennessee River. They're way down below Chattanooga right now, but they're coming up. They grow to 30 or 40 pounds, and they're very aggressive fish. If you run an outboard in the area where they are, they actually jump out of the water and jump in the boat, and have had people knocked out, arms broken, jaws broken, and they're trying to stop them from coming up the river. So we're going to get more and more information. We're going to try and get the individual that made the presentation there in Kingston to come up here and make a presentation. Pandora, go ahead.
We were actually going to have him make a presentation to the head of the committee at the Tennessee State Legislature that would handle lakes. And we got a hold of him, and he agreed on October 30th. And then he called back and said, I'll tell you what, instead of just presenting it to me, I want you to present to the entire committee. So I don't know that date yet, but we'll be hearing soon. But they're taking it seriously.
And the reason we want to do that, it takes two things. One is they do some type of a sonic or sound that the fish don't like that prevents them from passing a barrier. And then they actually have to put an electrical grid in there, and it's not very high voltage. It's DC current. It goes from 1.5 volts to 2.5 volts to 3.5 volts to 4.5 volts. So it's nothing that you got to worry about being electrocuted, but it's something that will keep those fish from coming up. And the reason we want to do that is everybody knows they have super bass tournaments here in the area. It would cost us millions and millions and millions of dollars if those fish get up here and decimate the lakes. Also, you talked about the different milliforms and other invasive species that are coming into the lake. So it will be a very interesting thing to come and listen to the man. He was very, very knowledgeable. Also, don't forget to go to the County Patriots website. Katie will be passing the basket now. That'll help us, especially with the election coming up. We're going to be trying to doing some things for the election, and we're going to try and get in with probably with the local lane Republican committee to see if we can get them to put a fire on them so we can get Trump reelected. Ray Brown was supposed to be here. He must not have come back in. He was going to do the history. So we're not going to have the history class or the Constitution class today. Does anybody know what today is? Tuesday, huh? Okay. Well, it is Constitution Day, so I was hoping he was going to be here to do a Constitution class, but he'll be back here for the next meeting. So we'll be able to be doing that.
Do people know why it's
Well, you want to tell us?
It was signed.
Okay.
What is it, 232 years ago?
1787.
Is that right?
I wasn't around there.
You know, she doesn't know when it was signed.
John was.
John was.
He was on enough dinosaurs.
Okay. Well, we have Ashley Fletcher here. He was here before, and he didn't have enough time to tell you everything he knows. He says he's not an expert on EMP, which is electromagnetic pulse, but you know what an expert is. That's somebody that's done it one more time than you. And so he's coming back and talking a little bit more about it, but got a whole bunch of things that he's going to show us, and it's going to be a show and tell. So if you have questions, ask him about it. I'll be running around with a microphone. So if you have a question, raise your hands. I'll bring you the microphone. That way we won't step on each other.
Thank you, Wayne. You know, I remember being here 4 or 5 years ago and Wayne saying, we really ought to try and get a lot of young people in here rather than, and I think you're right, Wayne. I'm looking out over this crowd now, the average age is deceased. 50 years from now, we're not looking at a bunch of people with tattoos and nose rings. But anyway, just for those of you who weren't here, I'll briefly cap. Electromagnetic pulse. There's two sources of electromagnetic pulse. A rogue country can blow a nuclear bomb up in the atmosphere and cause an electromagnetic pulse that would knock out the grid all over. In fact, if you do the whole eastern United States, you could do half the United States, and you would lose every microchip, every cell phone, everything electronic, including your car, your key fob into your car. So that's one type of EMP. The other type of EMP is called a solar flare. And the sun is 93 million miles away from us. The core of the sun is 27 billion degrees Fahrenheit, which is hotter than Pandora Vreeland was when she was 20 years old.
I doubt that.
But when a solar flare comes off the sun, it comes off with such force that it's traveling at 1,000,000 miles an hour. It is omnidirectional. Occasionally, a solar flare will come off of the sun and head down towards Earth with such force that it penetrates the protective layer called the magnetic sphere, and it comes down to Earth and causes damage. The biggest one was 1812. The good part about that is, of the two, of the man-made and the nuclear, that's much more dangerous because there's no warning, and you would lose almost all of the United States. Probably 90% of the grid would go down. The good part about a natural electromagnetic pulse is astronomers know when that electromagnetic pulse is heading down towards Earth, and we have 4 days and 8 hours. Because you're going 1,000,000 miles an hour, but you have to travel 93 million miles. So they have time to shut the grid down before that pulse hits. So there'd be a lot of damage, but it'd be a lot less than the other one. But tonight we're going to talk about, oh, and by the way, to prepare for electromagnetic pulse is much more difficult and much more involved than preparing for a natural disaster like the grid going down because of hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, floods, cyber attack, or maybe a rocket-fired hand grenade or propelled missile. There's a touch of irony. The United States is the most technologically advanced country in the world, and because of it, our grid is in the worst shape of almost any country in the world. And you say, well, how can that be? We electrified. We were one of the first countries to electrify. So our grid system is extremely old. And you would be amazed at the amount of times that the grid breaks down. And it's happening more frequently. In 1984, the government started keeping track of how often the grid goes down. And in 2018, our grid went down 285% more times than it did in 1984. And when you compare us to the rest of the world, the average customer in the U.S. loses power 214 minutes a year. In the United Kingdom, they lose power 70 minutes a year. In France, 53 minutes a year. Netherlands, 29 minutes a year. Japan, they only lose power 6 minutes a year. In Japan, the average electric customer loses power once every 20 years. In the United States, we lose power once every 9 months. And it's getting worse. So And that's because there's a greater demand, the population is increasing, and the grid is older every single day. So when we talk about prepping, a lot of people think that prepping for this disaster, this grid going down, just means buying a lot of stuff like water and food and stuff. But you have to incorporate a plan, because it can be a government collapse, it can be a cyber attack, it can be a bunch of things. So some of the questions that we hope to be able to answer, and I'll ask you, how can you be sure you have enough drinking water? How will you restore your food when your supply runs out? How will you travel if you don't have any gas for your car? How will you heat your home without gas or electric? How will you cook what food you do have? How will you maintain communications with your loved ones? How will you maintain personal hygiene, and how will you get rid of your trash, both human waste and household waste? And so tonight, I just hope to be able to give you the minimum preparedness so that you can be safe for a week if the grid goes down for a week. And by the way, in Charlotte, North Carolina, during Hurricane Hugo, they lost power for about 4 weeks. So it can happen, and you really ought to be prepared for about 4 weeks. And there's a rule of threes, and that is, how long can you live if you don't have breathable air? It's 3 minutes. You can live 3 hours if under extreme heat and under extreme hypothermia. You can live 3 days without water, and you can live 3 weeks without food. So that's a good thing to keep in mind. And when I was doing my research, does anybody have any idea how much water the average person uses per day? Anyone want to take a guess? Well, I was shocked. It was 80 to 100 gallons. So let's say it's 90 gallons. And that, by the way, includes washing, taking a shower, cooking, watering your lawn, everything else. The prepping people say that you should, to be safe, you should allow for 1 gallon a day per person. And frankly, I don't think that's enough. Because of that 1 gallon, you will drink 1 gallon. That only leaves you will drink a half a gallon. You only have a half a gallon to brush your teeth, to wash your hands, and to cook with. So I think people ought to plan for 1.5 gallons per person per day. So what that tells you is a husband and wife needs 3 gallons a day, times 30 days in a month. You really ought to have 90 gallons. So now you say to yourself, does that mean that I have to have 91 gallon water jugs in my garage? And the answer is no. Keep in mind that your hot water heater is an automatic storage tank. So if you have a 50 gallon hot water heater, you automatically have 50 gallons of stored water that you can drink. So you only need 40 gallons. What we've done in our house, we happen to, and I'm not happy, but we have an 80 gallon hot water heater, which is stupidly used for 2 people, but I have 80 gallons of storage. And then I went out and I bought 11 7-gallon water containers, so I have 77 gallons of water stored. And then we have 3 55-gallon rain barrels coming off the gutter. But keep in mind that when you store water, it's only good for 6 months. So if you've got 5 10-gallon jugs in the garage, put a date on them, because 6 months you're going to have to renew them. However, what you can do is you go on the internet, you can buy a vial, and you use 8 drops per gallon, and you can store your water for 5 years, which is, to me, is a lot better way to work.
What is it? By drops, what is it?
I don't know what it's a water preservative.
Oh, okay.
The other thing you have to be careful of, and this happens all the time, if people are out camping, they go down to a stream that they know may not be a stream that's safe to drink out of, and they'll take a water bottle, they'll stick that water bottle in the stream, go back to the campsite, and they will pour that water in a pan and sterilize that water, and then they'll take that sterilized water and pour it back into the water bottle. And I'm telling you, the minute you put your lips on that water bottle, you're going to be contaminated, because that water bottle is contaminated, and you will get all kinds of diseases from it. So don't ever put the water back into the vessel that you took it out of. Another little trick that won't cost you anything: sometimes when we go on vacation, we come back after 2 weeks or a week, and we notice that all of our devices, our microwave, timer, our alarm clocks, they're all flashing. So we know that the power was out, but we don't know how long the power was out. And maybe you talk to your neighbor, and the neighbor says, yeah, we were down for 6 hours. Your house might have been down for 8 or 10 or 12 hours. So you don't know if the food in your freezer is safe to eat or not. What I would suggest you do is you take a small juice glass, fill it about 3/4 of the way with water, put it in the freezer and freeze that juice glass. Then take a quarter, 25-cent piece, stick it on top of the ice in that little juice glass. Now you go away, and when you come back, if that quarter is at the bottom of the glass, throw the food in the freezer away. If that quarter is maybe a quarter of the way down through the glass and it's frozen again, you're good enough to eat that food. Halfway, it's a call either way. I would say if you had ice cream, I'd eat it, but if you had fish, if it was halfway down, I wouldn't eat it. If anybody's got any questions while I'm going, just feel free to call it, or you can wait till the end.
I got one. Okay.
Go ahead.
What about water filters? What about water filters? Do you think like the Sawyer water filter, about $20?
Good question. What I would do when I take, if I'm going to take the water out of my rain barrel, let's say, keep in mind the roof is a dirty thing. You've got pollen, you've got bird guano, you've got all kinds of stuff, and your gutters are dirty. So I would take that water out of the rain barrel. I would run a couple of quarts of that water through my zero water filter. Then I would sterilize that water. What you do is you purify the water first. You get rid of the rocks and the boulders and the guano. And then you sterilize that water. And then you can drink that water. So yeah, that's a good idea that you use a water filter.
Also, there is a filter. We bought one. It's about $60 to $80 at REI, and it sucks the water in. It goes through a micron filter, and it says it's completely pure to eat. Coming out the other end, it's good for 10,000 gallons of water.
Now you also want to keep in mind that if you have a generator, whether it's a gas generator or a propane generator or a solar generator, and I'll show you, it's good to know that you only have to run your freezer 1 hour per day. There's no need to run that freezer all day long. 1 hour a day will take care of it. So what you can do is put a timer between the generator and the freezer, put that timer on for an hour. A refrigerator only has to run 15 minutes every hour, so there's no need to waste that all that energy. What we did, we don't want to run, if we lose our power, we don't want to run our big refrigerator. So we went to Home Depot and went into the scratch and dent area and asked them if they had an executive refrigerator, the kind of small refrigerator that kids put in college dorms. And we've got one of those, and that only burns about 85 watts. And with my solar generator, that's about 3,000 watts. We can run that thing for 2 or 3 months, so we're going to have cold food. So that's not a bad idea.
But your solar generator charges a battery, right?
It charges an inverter inside the generator. But to answer your question, John, it's an 1100 watt generator, and I'll show it later. But I have it, I hook it up to 3 12 volt, 100 amp deep cycle marine batteries. So now I have 3,000 watts. And I can run, I've got some lights there that you can't even look at, they're so bright.
Would the EMP knock out that battery?
The EMP won't knock out a battery. What I do, this solar generator is full of microchips, and yes, an electromagnetic pulse would knock this thing, render it useless. I have get a little technical now, but I have a Faraday bag. I have a metallic bag that I slide that generator in at night. You could hit that thing with a magnetic pulse and nothing will happen. Okay? All right. Now, if you start to prep, don't be discouraged, because prepping takes a long time. And you may say, I can't afford to buy all this stuff at once, and you don't have to. It's a journey. My wife and I have been doing this for about 2.5 years, and we're still only about halfway through. We don't have near the amount of food that we should have, but so don't get discouraged. Some of the things you're going to need are certainly lighting, flashlights, solar flashlights, which are great, batteries, solar battery chargers, water and life straws, plenty of toilets and toilet paper, garbage bags. You're going to need a burn barrel. We went to Rural King. We bought a 50-gallon steel drum, and we drilled a bunch of holes in the side and a bunch of holes in the bottom. And the reason you want the holes in the bottom is you don't want the water to collect. And then we have a cover for it. So every 3 or 4 days, we would take our waste, our human waste and our household waste, throw it in that burn barrel and incinerate it. If you're without power for a month, and you take all your garbage and trash bags and keep throwing it out on the back lawn, it's going to be like Shoney's for a bunch of vermin. There's going to be all kinds of animals that will come over there. You need fire starters, a lot of Bic lighters, good first aid kit, a backup power generator that we talked about, cooking supplies. If you don't have a solar stove like we do, and you have a grill, I'd buy 10 bags of charcoal, so at least you can have enough charcoal to keep in food. Money, you want a bunch of $20 bills. Communications, you want walkie-talkie, ham radio, solar radio, there's a crank radio, so you can listen to the news, the forecast, and everything else. Duct tape, hygiene wipes, clothesline rope, good-sized tarps, blackout curtains. Yes, sir?
Won't an EMP take out all of the radios and take out
To answer your question, yes, but I keep that stuff. If you see this aluminum bucket, and I'll show it to you when we get ready, I keep all that stuff in Faraday bags. So all the stuff, you're right. An EMP would take that out.
even your generator?
Even my solar, it won't take my solar generator out.
Not your solar generator, a generator. The generator.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, that's gone.
Jim Freeland brought up a good point the last time I was here. He's a gun guy. He's got a gun safe, and he's got an electronic gun safe.
Gone.
Gone.
We have EMP-proof dials.
Ah, okay. So yeah, you're right. Blackout curtains. Blackout curtains are a good idea because if you're going to be down for a month or longer, you don't want people in the neighborhood and out of the neighborhood to know that you're around and that you've got lighting, because if they see lights, they'll probably say that's a good house to loot. And also in the wintertime, blackout curtains at night will help keep you warm. So, and they're not very expensive. Good sized tarp, guns and ammo, a comprehensive list of all your important documents, passports, insurance numbers, policy numbers, driver's license, bank account numbers, knives, and believe it or not, you really ought to have a bunch of games and a deck of cards, because it's going to be a long, long winter, and when you can't watch television, you can't flush a toilet, you'll want to do some stuff. So let's have some fun here. Does anybody have any idea what this is? It's a 5-gallon paint bucket. Now it's a toilet. You can buy a 5-gallon paint bucket at Home Depot. I would put a garbage bag in here, fill it with kitty litter, and now you have a toilet for about $7 or $8. We're so wealthy, we've got one for me and one for my wife. Okay, what else do we have?
Where'd you get that funny toilet? Yeah, that's what I want to
Just
know.
go on the internet, just get a toilet seat.
The toilet seat is fine.
I think it's about $7 or $8. Yeah, that's about a $12 toilet right there. Okay, you're going to need, this happens to be something called a solo stove. And you just put a bunch of twigs and paper in here, and this is how you sterilize your water. So, that's a handy room. What else have we got? This is a handy device. This is a solar charger for your cell phone. It clips onto your belt. If you're a hiker and you go in the Smoky Mountains and you fall and break a leg, and it's close to the winter time, and it's cold, and nobody knows you're missing, you get on your cell phone battery is low. This will charge your cell phone battery twice, or charge 2 cell phones, and you can be in the wilderness for weeks and weeks and still charge your cell phone. And this is a very inexpensive device. It clips right onto your belt. So that's a good thing to have. This little device, this actually would be a good device for every woman to have in her pocketbook or attached to her pocketbook. Go on Amazon Prime, and you can buy like 10 of these for $7. And what I would do with these, if you had a grid down situation for any length of time, I would get some fishing wire. Keep in mind you're not going to have any electricity around your house. I would wrap some fishing wire around a tree, and I'd rig these things all around the perimeter of my house, so the minute somebody came onto my property that didn't belong there, you'd hear that. And that's a $7 security system. I mentioned solar radio. You can buy, this is a combination solar radio and crank radio. You can buy these things for 13 or 14 bucks.
Would the electronics in that not be affected by an EMP?
Yes, it would. Again,
Faraday bag, shield.
you want to shield.
EMP's hit.
Get that EMP struck. Again, you want to put it in a Faraday bag. In fact, let's cover that because that's come up a lot. Just nothing more than a galvanized bucket. And what you do is you take cardboard and you line the inside of that bucket and you line the cover, and then you can buy this metallized stuff. And you you put all of your electronics, this happens to be a smaller one, we've got a bigger one, all of your electronics in this, and you can zap whatever you want to zap, and you'll never hurt any of the electronic stuff. They also make Faraday bags called Tech Save or something, and they're very inexpensive. I slide the solar generator into a tech bag. This may be a little bit of overkill. Night vision goggles. You can see about 100 yards with these, infrared. You'd like to know if somebody's coming up on your property at night. One of the most fun devices. This is a combination scanner, AM/FM radio, and ham radio. $38. Now in Teleco Village, there's a repeater, so this will carry you out to be able to listen about 40 miles away. So if the grid is down for an extended period of time and you've got some bad boys that want to come loot, the ham radio operators will definitely let you know. And by the way, they don't care. If the grid goes down and it's an emergency situation, don't worry about a ham license. I don't have one. But for $38, that's a pretty good deal. That's a Baofang.
Do you know that as of like a year ago, the FCC
Hold on just a second. Nobody can hear you. Nobody can hear you.
I was asking if that was a Baofang because these things are real popular. I got two of them, but they were advertising 8 watts, but they would actually put out more than that. And the FCC came down hard on Baofang, and they were having a hard time importing. I don't know if you can still get those.
I don't need it.
When was the last time when did you purchase it?
I bought this about 6 months ago.
Okay, so maybe.
Yeah. Anyway, it's a good thing to have. Okay. We talk about food. Now let's do something else. Anybody know what this is? You bingo players might say under the B17. It's a washing machine. You take 4 or 5 pair of underwear, 4 or 5 t-shirts, 8 quarts of water, stick it in there, put the cover back on, go back and forth, rinse it out, and there's a tube that drains it. So you got a washing machine, and just obviously take a clothesline and hang the laundry out. You need some detergent. All right. We talk about food. There's a company called Wise that puts food out. This food is good for 25 years, and in this bucket is 158 servings of all different kinds of meals. Now, the mistake that people make, they say, oh good, 158 servings, so my wife and I can divide this by 2, and that'll carry us. No, you have to eat 3 meals a day. So you really need to divide something like this by 3. If you tried to buy enough food for you and your wife to last a year, you would probably be writing a check for about $3,000. So you need to do that piecemeal, and there is a lesser alternative. And the Mormons, the Latter-day Saints, sell these number 10 cans. This is elbow macaroni, and I think there's 24 servings. You can buy 6 of these cans, which would be 144 servings, for about 20 or 30 bucks. So that's 144 meals. So that's a good deal. All right. What was the question?
You get a balanced meal.
There you go.
No, he doesn't want the vegetables. Oh, that's the problem.
You're the diabetes.
But you like strawberry shortcake. Oh, yeah.
This is a solar oven. And believe it or not, you take a trivet put a trivet in the bottom. You take 2 4-quart Pyrex bowls, you know, and you put one bowl on top of the other, so you have like a clamshell. This in the sun will heat up to 600 degrees. You can cook a roast, you can cook chicken, you can bake a cake in this damn thing. It's awesome. And it's like 80 bucks. It comes all flattened out, you have to put it together.
You get a week of rainy days.
Then you
Don't fulfill it.
go back to the buckets. Okay.
What is a trivet? You said put a trivet?
A trivet is a little, it's like a little metal stand. See that? See where that roll comes in? That hold that up. Something like that. That's what you put your.
Yeah, you want to keep it up on the bottom.
There you go.
So it's not.
This is my favorite. This is a 20-pound solar generator. The beauty of a solar generator is I just turned it on. Unlike a gas generator, it doesn't make a sound. Now, even if I turn it off, these lights only burn 9 watts apiece. Keep in mind, I've got 2,900 watts. I could run these lights on one solar charge for 100 days. And I can daisy chain them. These things will go out about 30 feet, so I can daisy chain them from room to room. I can run a refrigerator, freezer, power tools, fans, television if I want to. This is awesome. This you can charge 2,000 times. I can charge it from an AC if we have AC. I can charge it from a cigarette lighter in my car, or I have 6 100-watt solar panels, and in 1.8 hours on a sunny day, I can charge this thing. I can still use it while I'm charging. And not to get technical, but there are 2 types of solar panels. There's polycrystalline, poly meaning many, monocrystalline, mono meaning one. A monocrystalline panel is more expensive because it's made out of one silicone chip. But the beauty of it is, I can charge this solar generator on a cloudy day. If I had a polycrystalline, I couldn't do that. So these are probably $40 or $50 more than a poly, but they're a lot better.
How much is your generator, Ashley?
I was hoping you wouldn't ask.
I take it back.
Instead of just saying the generator, the whole outfit, you're looking at about $2,500. So I don't know how much a whole house generator costs, but the beauty of this is, with a whole house generator, once you run out of propane and once you run out of gasoline for the generator, you're done. This thing will go, I figure this thing will go for at least 20 years because it'll take 2,000 charges. Why don't we, I can show you some more stuff, but why don't we just take any questions that you folks have?
How many kilowatt hours does that generator provide?
How many kilowatt hours?
Well, that's how you have to rate your distribution, right?
I wish I had my Kodiak with me, but good question. Where did that question come from?
With all your batteries, you know, 300.
Well, I've got 3 12-volt 100-amp deep cycle marine batteries. So that's what, 1,200 watts a piece, but you can bring them down to 600 watts. So, you know, if you only want to get them down to 50%. So 1,800 watts plus the 1,100. I can tell you the watt. I don't know the kilowatts. I'm sorry.
Not about 10 kilowatts, but in the event of an EMP, that's all kind of useless, right? Because all of the
Keep in mind that this isn't a Faraday cage, this generator. An EMP hits. You're not going to have an EMP Tuesday and then another EMP Wednesday and Thursday and Friday. It's a one-time event.
provided they only drop one, right?
Well, that's all they'll need.
Yeah, because all the airplanes fall out of the sky, all your cars are dead.
Yeah, but also keep in mind that an EMP is what they call a low probability, high impact event. The event of an EMP is so much less than a hurricane, a tornado, an earthquake, or anything else. And especially a nuclear EMP. I think if that happens, we're kind of all toast anyway.
Yeah, somebody like Iran, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah. Or North Korea.
Hold on just a second, me too.
Does a gasoline engine, if it's not running, get affected by an EMP?
Only the electronics. Yeah.
Only the electronic. If you had a 1940 or 1960 Ford or something, you're fine. It'll run. If you had an old Mustang, it'll run. I think from what, 1980 on, they started putting whenever they started putting microchips in cars. If you had an old car, you're good to go, Jim. Yeah.
Hold on here. Go slow for the block.
Yeah.
If the car is not if the car, it's my new car, if my car is not on and there's an EMP, I'm still wiped out.
Toast.
Toast. Okay, just
Now,
checking.
now, people that have gone to the wacko degree have an EMP garage, and your car would be okay. But I can't.
Faraday garage.
A Faraday garage. I can't imagine the expense. It's probably $20,000 or $30,000. But people do it. That's when you get a lot of money.
Faraday carpool.
Yeah.
The book, 1 Second After, will apply to my sister and I because we live in an apartment complex and there's no way that we can do any of this stuff.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, I encourage anybody, if anybody's interested in this stuff, there's a book, I think it was William Forstchen that wrote a book called 1 Second After. And even though it's a fictitious book, and he collaborated with Newt Gingrich on that book, everything he talks about in that book could absolutely happen, and it'll really wake you up and let you know how important it is to be prepared for a grid loss. It's a book that you can't put down. It's so exciting. It's been around for 10 or 15 years.
Is there anything you're missing that you wish you had?
A Swedish bikini king. Is there any? Let me think. Yeah. My equipment's so old it doesn't matter anyway. I don't even have to keep it in the Faraday bag. Is there anything? No, I can't think of anything. Is there anything, Lee, that we don't have that we should have? I don't think so. Now, having said that, yes, sir.
I got one that I would encourage you to consider. You can download Wikipedia. It will not fit on a 64 gig chip, but if you have some with more storage than that, you have Wikipedia on your... I would encourage you to consider downloading Wikipedia. It will not fit on a 64 gig chip, but if you have a bigger chip than that, you can have Wikipedia on your handheld device in your Faraday bag. But there's a lot of stuff that I don't know that Wikipedia does.
Oh, that's a good idea. I keep a very small computer in another Faraday bag. It's a laptop, and that would be a great idea to download that. Yes, Teresa?
I wanted to know what it is that you cooked in your oven.
We actually haven't used it yet. In fact, it's funny that you say that because I don't want anybody to think that we are great preppers, because we're not. We are so lacking in a plan, and so lacking. We have a couple of neighbors that live on the lake that we're friendly with, and we discussed this. But we really ought to be a lot more, and I need to use this stuff a lot more. I was going to bring a smaller solar generator tonight. I opened the damn thing up and I forgot how to use it. So we've been buying stuff, but we've been really bad stewards as far as learning how to use a lot of this stuff.
And you haven't washed any clothes either?
No, as long as we get power. Oh, no, we haven't tried that yet. But I'm a clean freak. And I'm telling you, folks, when I went through Hurricane Hugo, I mean, I'm one of these guys that takes 2 showers a day. And when you live 3 or 4 weeks without, I mean, it is a nasty existence. It is very uncomfortable. It's not fun.
And there's one more thing that you need, and we talked about that. If there is a condition where an EMP hits and we're going to be out for an extended period of time, you're going to have to be able to defend yourself. So you need guns, ammunition. That's another big thing that I think. And you also have to know how to use them and clean them. But more than that, most homes, you can't defend a lot of homes where you are, especially with one family. You may end up considering having 2 or 3 families to where you can have the perimeter guarded on a 24-hour day basis, because people are going to, if you've got it, somebody's going to want to come and take it, and so you're going to have to defend it.
Wayne is absolutely correct. And this is an important distinction between losing power from a hurricane or a tornado versus an EMP. When an EMP comes down, folks, first of all, the police in Knoxville, the police in Lenore City, forget it. They're going to be protecting their own family. And what's going to happen, you're going to have looters go in the store first. Drug addicts are going to break down the doors of pharmacies. They're going to steal all kinds of drugs.
How are they going to get to the pharmacy?
Walk, bicycle, doesn't matter. If somebody wants to get coked up on cocaine, they'll get in, believe me. So, and then when they start to run out of food, they'll start coming and looting houses, and they'll pick what we call the low-hanging fruit. They're not going to go to some poor guy that's got a little mobile home out in the country. They're going to go to a mansion and start with the high dollar stuff. And really to plan for that eventuality, what you really need is you need like 5 families in one house. The one house should be the highest house in the neighborhood. And the ideal family would be somebody like Jim and Pandora Breland, who are good firearm people. Maybe somebody whose wife was a nurse that knows a lot about medicine would be another good couple. Some guy that's a ham radio freak and loves to communicate. Somebody who's handy and can make anything out of a piece of wood. And the reason you need 10 couples and you live them in the same house is you need to stand guard 24/7, and you need to walk around the perimeter. So that's a whole different ballgame. And my wife and I are very ill prepared for that event, I'll tell you. But we all should do that. At some point you say, I'm a nut job for doing this, or am I being callous? I get kicked out of the Boy Scouts, by the way.
I don't want to know why.
Well, when I went to give the oath, I said, on my honor, I will do my best to help those Girl Scouts get undressed. Anyway, yes, sir.
Ashley, you mentioned about the people like all of us, we're going to need medication too, so people should keep a stash of that readily available, so if something happens, they can get to it, because there won't be pharmacies in a situation like EMP.
That's true.
And most of the stuff you're talking about, I used to work with the National Guard as part of military support to civil authorities, and our situations were normal emergencies like tornadoes and things like that. And there was a lady here, someone here who said she lives in an apartment and she couldn't do it. But everybody can. FEMA as good as all FEMA says, and I'm not a big government guy, but FEMA's pretty good. But they always say it's going to take them 4 days to get there to help you. And I was down in Katrina with the Guard, and I saw all that happen, and they did help. But for the first 5 or 6 days, everybody is on their own. And if you get ready in your own house, you're going to live at least halfway decent till help comes. Because most people haven't prepared at all. And they're going to be the nutty ones. They're going to run around crazy. But you'll be able to feed your family and keep your family until help can come, and then we can restore us. Now, if they do an EMP, God only knows what can happen.
Here's the issue too, Greg, is the problem with medicine. I'm on 6 or 7 different medicines, blood pressure, heart medicine, all that stuff. The trouble is you can only get a 90-day supply. So if you're at the end of that 90-day rope and something hits and you've got 4 days left, forget it. You know, it would be wonderful if we could all buy a year's worth of medicine, but we can't do that, unfortunately. So that's going to be rough. But obviously in an EMP, the first people who are going to go are people on life support, people in hospitals. Diabetics are going to have a problem because you need to keep your diabetic medicine cold and frozen. You can't have a refrigerator to freeze that stuff. That's going to go bad. So it's a nasty situation, and it's a little depressing even to think about it.
Yeah, one over here.
I think that most of us would agree that there is a synchronized, strategic plot to bring socialism to this country and to bring America to its knees.
No question.
This would be a great way to get people desperate. How aware is the President Trump's administration? Does anybody know what's being done to educate, help people prepare for such a thing, prevent? I know I've watched Pat Robertson on the 700 Club, the Christian Broadcasting Network, speak about this repeatedly, trying to warn people. So I'm just curious about that.
Here is a very sad answer to your question. For years, down in the halls of Congress, there was an electromagnetic pulse commission. And these people studied, and they made people aware, and they had, I've watched a bunch of hearings. For whatever stupid reason, the government has done away with the electromagnetic pulse commission. Other countries have hardened their grids. I think even some of the bad countries have hardened their grids. We have not hardened our grid. Now some states, it's a state-by-state thing, some states have hardened their grid, so if they get hit, they're okay. Tennessee is not one of them. The other bad thing that would happen, I mentioned this before, if we got hit with electromagnetic pulse, Watts Bar nuclear power plant is 40 miles away. After 4 or 5 days, the spare fuel for the cooling towers would go down, and you would start having a meltdown, and hopefully that wind wouldn't be coming this way, but if it did, it'd be one huge radiation cloud coming towards Lenore City. So, but the government and all their, and you know, it would, here's the damning thing, this will drive you nuts. It would only cost $2 billion to harden the entire grid of the United States, which is about $5 a year per person in the United States, or some stupid number. Now, why the government isn't doing that, it just blows me away. We wouldn't need to worry about all this stuff. It's crazy. It's really crazy. Anyway, that's your federal government.
Yeah, the military equipment is hardened. I know our aircraft I was flying all were EMP certified. So the military airplanes are going to be flying. I'm not sure how many of the civilian airplanes will be flying.
Crazy. That's another issue. I have a drone. It's a very inexpensive drone. I really ought to get another one. But that would be something good to have. Now, again, you'd have to keep that in a Faraday cage because that's electronic. But in a situation where we had an EMP attack and Lenore City went down, and all of a sudden a group from Knoxville started walking down the highway towards Lenore City, at least with a drone you could get up in the air and report back on your walkie-talkie or ham radio saying, there's a group of 100 guys that are in Dixie Lee Junction now heading our way, and people could have time to get ready. So that'll be a good thing to have.
I have one more question.
Yes, ma'am?
I'm over here. My husband and I have talked about this. If socialism is successful in coming to this country, if there's an EMP attack, has other people thought about where can you go? Where can you move to? And where would be a good place to move to, whether it's socialism or an attack?
First of all, you couldn't move because you wouldn't have a vehicle at work. So you unless you got a real hot bicycle or a 1948 Mustang or something, you're not going to go anywhere, unfortunately. And by the way, and keep in mind, the highway will be clogged anyway because every car on Interstate 40 it will stop immediately. I mean, you talk about a traffic jam. 18-wheel trucks, everything. It would be one parking lot from here down to Chattanooga.
I think you're there now. Ma'am.
Socialism.
No, a place to live.
Oh, yeah.
She's in the right spot right now.
Yeah. I mean, an ideal situation would be if you lived out on a farm. If you had a gravity-fed well, that would be. Anybody here have a gravity-fed well? God, that's beautiful. Yeah, they had one. A water tower up on a hill. Don't need any power. The water, you could take showers, you could drink all you want. It would be beautiful. Wayne, you've got a good situation.
We live on the lake.
They live on the lake and they pull the water out of the lake. Jimmy Pandora.
The lake is going to shrink down to a little trickle.
Yeah, well.
Dams are going to go.
That's true.
Here's your little trivia. How many lakes are there in Tennessee?
How many lakes in Tennessee?
How many lakes?
I know how many lakes in the TVA system, but I don't know how many in Tennessee. Really?
There's over 30 reservoirs. All rivers.
Okay.
Real Foot Lake's the only lake.
Wow.
So these rot, and they're all moving down that trickle. Damn.
One lake in Tennessee. How about that for a piece of?
The rest of it's built on TVA.
And then think of the mud you're going to have to go through to get to the water.
You didn't mention seeds. Have you given any thought to having seeds?
We have, my wife has some seeds, yeah. You'll want to try and grow as much stuff as you can. That is correct. I forgot to mention that, you're right. I'm going to try, and I told Wayne, I'll try and get a list together that I can send to Wayne and he can send it out to you folks. And I'm sure I'll miss a lot of stuff. But you can buy any, I mean, you can go on the internet and say, what do I need to prepare for a grid down situation? And it'll give you it'll give you a much more comprehensive list than I can ever even think of. So that's where I found most of our stuff was on the internet. And you know, you make the mistake, you buy something and it's cheap, and you say, God, that's a piece of crap. So you throw that away and you go buy something else. I mean, I wish I had the knowledge now that I did when I started, because I would have saved a lot of money. But anyway, it's done. Well, folks, I can't thank you enough. Bless you.
Okay, I want to thank you very much. That's kind of fun. I'm sure he's going to leave it up here for a little bit, so after the meeting you can come up and fondle some of the equipment that's up here. Hundreds of pounds, he says.
Because they actually full of it.
You're full of it like I am.
They have a cat.
Okay, I want to also let you know that there's going to be an Act for America meeting, and that will be on September the 26th, 6:15, and it's at Petro's truck stop on Watt Avenue. 5 o'clock is the optional dinner, and 6:15 is the meeting. Tim James will be their guest speaker, talking about personal experiences in England and China. For our next meeting, I never can pronounce his last name, Chris Galblatz, is that him? pronounce it well. He was here about 6 months or more ago, and he was talking about his experience with CARE. He infiltrated CARE, and it was a really good meeting. And so he's got more experiences and more things he wants to talk about. So he'll be here for the next meeting. Yes. Okay. One more.
I got one more thing. My wife and I came here about 4:30 because I wanted to pull all this stuff out of the car. When I came here, I noticed that Katie and Wayne were here eating. And Wayne and Katie have run this Tea Party, Cross Country Patriots, for about 10 years now, and you have no idea. You're seeing tonight the end result, but you have no idea the amount of work, the background work, the booking of the speakers, and then at the last minute some speaker cancels, or some speaker comes and he's going to talk about something, then he changes his mind and all the people say, hey, the complaints. We can't thank you and your wife enough. There's nobody in the world that would do this for 10 years, and I thank you so much.
We do have a lot of help. The Miles here do a lot for us. Pandora does stuff for us, and we have other folks that get involved. But if somebody else would like to help us out, I really need some help with the website. So if you would like to get involved with me, because I also do the website, and would like to do that, I'd really appreciate the help with that. So we'll have our next meeting on October the 15th, and hope to see all of you there. If you have any questions about Tea Party or anything else, please come see me after the meeting. Thank you.
Are you still available for Walter's birthday party?
Cut that part about the guns out.
be right back with that for you, okay?